From the early days of Nat Geo or Animal Planet, we've gotten used to seeing amazing footage of animals in the Serengeti or in the deepest reaches of our oceans. Yet, the world around us is teeming with life, and we seem to miss it as it passes by right under our noses. Since Alex and I started traveling the country, I've been trying to get closer to the wildlife in each place, and to really understand how it lives in its environment. In that time, we've swum with manatees, we've seen sandpipers eating by the shore, and we've gotten up close with the underwater life of the various Florida springs. But yeah, the manatees were definitely a highlight. So when we decided to spend a few months near Cedar Creek Lake in East Texas, I figured I would dive into the life and environment of the region. What kinds of creatures would I find? So I grabbed the camera and a positive attitude and set out to find out. Come with me as I explore this beautiful part of the world and look at life that's right by our doorstep. This was episode 1 of Life Next Door by Away We Drove. Stay tuned for more. It's early morning over Cedar Creek Lake. As the sun rises, the animals start to wake up. The purple martins start the day with incredible choreography. Meanwhile, the cormorants are out for breakfast. They are very good swimmers and good divers too. They'll find and chase schools of fish, sometimes in small numbers, and other times in the hundreds. Bugs seem to be the base of this food chain. They attract the fish, which in turn attract the cormorants. Once their bellies are full, they head back home, but we'll talk about that more later. Cormorants aren't the only ones eating around here. Canada geese are primarily herbivorous, but they're happy to find food at Cedar Creek Lake as well. With all that activity going on around me, I started to wonder what was lurking beneath the surface, and that's what we're going to look into next. This was episode 2 of Life Next Door by Away We Drove. Stay tuned for more. To find out more about the underwater life at Cedar Creek Lake, we headed over to the Texas Freshwater Fisheries Center. It's a beautiful place to explore and just spend a couple of hours wandering around. The entire facility takes up about 107 acres near Athens, Texas, most of which dedicated to the hatching tanks. However, there's also a conservation center dedicated to teaching people about the local wildlife, and that's what we were really here for. We found out that catfish are particularly common around here, and they get quite large. Buffalo can be a fisherman's favorite, if a little goofy looking. Meanwhile, alligator gar look pretty meat, but they're not actually a threat to humans. In fact, most of the life in Texas waters is pretty harmless, and that includes alligators. They will avoid people for the most part, unless you go around bothering them. You can often find turtles basking in the sun around here. As you can expect, they're not in a hurry to get anywhere. Wandering around the property, we also saw some smaller life forms, and it's pretty clear that the Texas waters have a lot of life in them. But what about above water? That's what we're going to look at next. This was episode 3 of Life Next Door by Away We Drove. Stay tuned for more. As we were driving to and from the fish hatchery, we noticed some fields of wildflowers on the side of the road. So the next day, we decided to stop by and check them out. It turns out that April is the height of bluebonnet season in Texas, so it was a perfect time to go see them. Bluebonnets is the state flower of Texas, and you'll see literally entire fields of them on the side of the road. They smell really good, and they're beautiful. But be mindful not to step on them, because they're protected by Texas state law. Indian paintbrush is also in season this time of year. They're not quite as famous as the bluebonnets, but honestly from far away, they might even look better. And they're also really cool in a close-up too. These purple ones I had never seen before, and they turned out to be crimson clover. It's actually native to Europe, but it's been introduced in the US as well. Oh no, when it comes to wildflowers, Texas really delivered. This was episode 4 of Life Next Door by Away We Drove. Stay tuned for more. After checking out the wildflowers, I decided to go back to the water. So I went to check out the Cedar Creek Wildlife Management Area, specifically the 2 islands on the south end of the Wildlife Management Area. I put on my coolest explorer outfit and paddled over to the islands. It was a beautiful 2-mile paddle to the first island, where I got the first look at the local egret population. I only had my action camera on me, so I had to get really close to get a good shot. In order to protect the birds, land access to the islands is forbidden, so I tried to get as close as I could from the water without bothering the birds. This bird was gathering materials to build a nest, which is a pretty vulnerable moment, so I gave it plenty of space. The cormorants are very skittish, so I sat as low as I could on the board and let the current drift me towards them. I have to admit it was only half successful, but at least I got some footage before they decided they were done with me. I clearly needed a better approach if I was going to get really good footage though. This was episode 5 of Life Next Door by Way We Drove. Stay tuned for more. So we both just took a dive. There was an eddy line that neither of us saw because we're talking, and then yeah, we did some swimming. Was it fun? Yeah. Refreshing is a good word for it. After exploring the islands in the middle of the lake, we decided to explore the north end of the lake. It's an area of meandering rivers and vibrant wetlands. That made it an ideal setting to explore with our paddleboards. Right off the bat, we ran into a flock of cliff swallows. We didn't know this initially, but cliff swallows can be highly protective of their nest, and they thought that our drone was a predator. Needless to say, we flew out of there pretty quickly. When they're not out attacking expensive equipment, cliff swallows are sweet birds that live in the overpasses and bridges. Once we decided that we had bothered them enough, we started paddling upstream. It was a tricky paddle with a healthy amount of current and lots of strainers. Strainers are any object that you can get pinned against, like these trees you see here, and they can be extremely dangerous for a paddler. Still, it was a beautiful paddle through flooded forest, which is not something we get to do every day. We didn't see much wildlife, so we headed back downstream, which quite frankly was a pretty relaxing experience. This place kind of embodied everything we want to do with Life Next Door though. Right next to the highway, we have all this stuff going on and no one even knows about it. This was episode 6 of Life Next Door. Stay tuned for more.
Probably like I didn't find a spot to relax.
Well, I mean, I knew you'd find a spot to relax.
Ah.
No one had any doubts about that.
It's so slow.
For our last adventure around Cedar Creek Lake, we decided to paddle back over to the islands in the middle of the lake. We had to get some really wide-angle shots last time, so this time I came ready for close-ups. We lucked out and ended up there right as the egrets were raising their young. They're cute little things, but as any parent can attest to, kids can be a handful. Egrets are not the only animals living in this island. There are also cormorants, black-crowned night herons, mallards, pelicans, and tricolored herons. We nicknamed this guy the Sentinel because he kept watching to make sure we were cool. We took the hint and got out of there pretty quickly. This beautiful place is already threatened by erosion and by pieces of trash that show up on the shore. Needless to say, we definitely didn't want to add to the problem. Heading back to the shore, we stumbled upon a family of ducks. It looks like May is the time of year when a lot of birds are starting to get ready to fledge. We put our boards away and explored for a little bit on foot. We noticed some movement near shore and found out there was a bunch of fish eating right off the shore. My best guess is that they're common carp, and they're eating the grass and whatever creatures are living within the grass. We left our aquatic friends behind and wrapped up our adventure in this beautiful corner of the world. We had an incredible time exploring this man-made lake, and we were amazed by how much life we found right outside our doorstep. We hope this inspires you to look outside of your own doorstep too. I'm Theo from Away We Drove. Thanks for watching and see you again soon.